Hey everyone, welcome to ReadIT. Today we have some Ask Reddit, and the user I am stupid lol1 is asking. Doctors of Reddit, what is your, how is this guy still alive, moment? Seen a brain MRI from a malformed person that had approximate 40% of its brain. The right hemisphere just wasn't there, less than half thalamus and midbrain. Only cerebellum, medulla, and spinal cord were whole in the central nervous system. To my surprise, besides not being able to walk and having difficulties doing precise movements with hands, the patient was a pretty normal and functional human being. Not even my teachers knew how to explain how. Brains, such a mysterious, wonderful invention. I knew a guy like that. He said there was just a load of fluid where most of one hemisphere of his brain should be. One side of his body was a bit messed up, walked with a limp, limited dexterity with his arm/hand, and he had seizures fairly often, but he coped with the physical limitations pretty well and seemed completely capable mentally. Not a doctor, but my grandfather, who is in 80s, overweight, 300-ish lbs, maybe 350-ish, and has pre-existing conditions, diabetes, has had a quad bypass, is currently still in the hospital. In early December, he went in for COVID. Beat that, but then suffered sepsis. Beat that, but started urinating blood in PT, rushed back to hospital to find blood thinner medicine issue. Seemed to get over that, but crashed one night, ended up on life support. Ended up having blood clots in upper legs and sepsis coming back. Currently recovering from that. Odds are 50/50ths right now, but I cannot believe he's made it this far or that it's even 50/50ths. That is amazing. All that he has survived physically, and he is still quite heavy? Of all of the morbidly obese people I have seen in my life, most dropped a considerable amount of weight as they age into their 70s and 80s. I hope your grandfather gets to come home soon. My grandfather just got out. He's 91, blind due to cancer that nearly killed him, nearly deaf, dealing with chronic prostate cancer. He had a stroke back in December, regained most feeling and movement in his right side, went to rehab for physical therapy, got his first dose of the vaccine, caught COVID a few days after, had mild symptoms, and was released after getting his negative test back after a week or so. Not a doctor, but one of these patients. LOL, every time my primary care doc sees me he's genuinely pleased to see I'm still walking. Can you explain? Every time I come in, even for an annual checkup, I have done something else to my body. Or my body has done something else to me. Severe MRSA infections. Large AF fibroids. Blood clot/DVT out of nowhere. Lyme disease that was untreated for years. Tetanus that hadn't been updated in several decades. Heart valve issue that makes my blood pressure a pain in the ass to control. Complex migraine. Loss of sensation on my dominant side, therefore also some loss of use of my hand, leg. Loss of vision on that side as well. Oh, and my fingers on that side don't get all crinkly when I've been in the water too long. Substantial arthritis is both knees, ankles, and shoulders. Rotor cuff damage in one shoulder. Collarbone that didn't heal right. Plus my job/hobby was dangerous AF. And I do all the remodeling etc. on my home. Pretty sure I am also one of his youngest patients at 50 YRS. He's stopped telling me to take it easy a few years ago because he knows I can't, and won't. I seriously think he's shocked I am still alive every time he sees my name come up for an appointment. Work in a pharmacy, we got a call from a doctor about his patient's chemo. He had prescribed a strength 10 times higher than he should have for a cancer patient. But not only was the patient still alive, they were in full remission. A guy was stabbed on a plane and I ran over to help after someone yelled for a doctor. I kept pumping on his stomach and blood went all over the place. I slapped him a few times and survived. The best part is I wasn't even a doctor. My fiancée was actually run over by a bus. A big one. Crushed her pelvis, broken bones in her back, all sorts of internal injuries. She was in a medically induced coma for several weeks. 30-ish surgeries and 15 years later she can do anything she wants, don't challenge her. She even had 2 kids. We only met a few years ago and she still drops little bits of the story in passing like it's no big deal. From a patient perspective. Last summer I went into the doctor for a minor complaint that was more of an annoyance than anything else. 12 days later when I'm having surgery to remove a 4x3x 3.5 cm, thankfully non-cancerous, tumor from my brain. Even if you are not familiar with anatomy in any way, I'm sure you realize that there's not a lot of extra space in the skull for non-brain things to hang out. That's a big thing hanging out and therefore putting a lot of extra pressure, literally, on the things that were supposed to be there. The doctors told me it was a good thing we caught it when we did because otherwise it was a matter of when it would have killed me, not if. I may be late to the party. Not me, but my grandfather. When he was about 24 to 26, he was diagnosed with a rare disease that caused him to bleed like anything. My dad was a year or two old at that time. Brush his teeth, bleed a ton. Spit. There was blood in it too. People thought he was going to die. He was given a bottle of blood every 2 to 3 days. He didn't die. He battled with it for 3 years and then suddenly, the disease miraculously disappeared. He believed that it was due to God's grace as he became more religious during that time and begged God to heal him and God granted his wish, but scientifically speaking, it was indeed a miracle. The doctors was baffled and surprised that this had happened and accused him of doing something or taking some other treatment. He hadn't taken any other treatment. So for the next 8 years, a group of researchers and doctors made him travel about 100 miles every now and then to test his body, all expenses paid, only to conclude that miracles happen and he was lucky. I don't know the name of the disease, but my dad, a doctor, does. After that incident, he had a heart attack when he was in his mid-50s. My dad, a med school student, was at home the same time, checked his pulse, realized it was a heart attack and drove him to the hospital. He survived again. During a cataract surgery, the surgeon by mistake cut off the optic nerve causing him to be blind in one eye. He also had diabetes, and many other ailments. He lived till the age of 77, died due to a second heart attack with 3 major arteries blocked. He could have lived if he regularly went for checkups and appointments. He lived 50 plus years in grace period. God's grace was what he claimed. I'm an atheist and I believe he was lucky, but I don't care. Next question is asked by the user Moist Curdy Maxi Pad. Forget cringe. What are some great memories from middle school? One of my favorite memories from 8th grade is when a friend of mine showed me that, for some reason, our Chromebooks, yes, I'm that young, had a little LED light on the back that could light up in red, yellow or blue. We thought this was the coolest thing ever, but then it got even better. I downloaded an app on the Chromebook called Delrave, which could light up the LED light in not 3 but 7 colors and play them in any pattern you wanted. So we both set ours to alternate between all 7 colors at the fastest speed possible. It looked like some sort of nightclub strobe thing, but the light was so small the teachers never noticed. Soon enough the entire school was doing it too. Every time we got out computers, the Delrave disco started. Wow, that was fun. I was confident back then. I did truth or dares. I asked girls out, all rejected me. People were nice and willing to make new friends. I almost lost my virginity, I chickened out and ran away. I got in fights. I used to play the trumpet. I didn't know what anime was. I used to have friends. I went through a tiny emo phase. I went to a theme park for the first time in my life. I cared about my friends. I had potential. I think middle school was my peak. Every time I think of 7th and 8th grade, the first thing I think of is being made fun of by 2 kids a grade below me. Any memory of 7th and 8th grade is dominated by those 2 F-heads. Being made fun of is bad enough, but it's worse when you're individually targeted, aka they know my name. And it's worse when kids outside of your class are making fun of you. And it's worse when said kids are kids whom you've never interacted with. And it's even worse when they spend, in my opinion, a lot of time and energy into making fun of you. When complete strangers are spending a lot of time and energy to make you feel like crap, you start to believe there is something wrong with you. Not in a I act weird / Asperger's way, but there is something about me or my personality that is fundamentally broken. It's been several years, but I still have fantasies of reading the local news and seeing that one of them died in an accident, and I would DM their family and say, "Remember me? This guy used to make fun of me even though I literally never interacted with them beforehand. I'm happy he's dead and I'm happy that you are sad over his death." Although I'm afraid the DM is going to go viral over the internet. I don't like teaching kids to ignore bullying because when you think about it, it puts the bullies in control of your life. When I entered 7th grade, I had no idea 2 random 6th graders would be controlling my life. Every weekend we would go over to the house of one of my best friends. his mom would make us homemade authentic Italian food. Then we would either stay up playing video games or going out adventuring through his neighborhood. Lots of great times wandering through the water drainage system to reach the top of a hill with a great view of the greater Los Angeles County. 90% of mine were awful, but I met my best friend in middle school. She was smart as hell. She skipped a grade, so she's a year younger than me. One time in high school she did my geometry homework for me without me asking, and I got a 100 for it. We have a weird dynamic of me roasting her for being a nerd and her roasting me for being dumb. 10 years later she's still my best friend. Love her to bits, even when she texts me at 3 a.m. to complain about bad fanfictions. I used to eat lunch with a group of the loser kids. We were an array of punks, goths, late bloomers, autistics and closeted LGBT kids. We sat on the floor in a dead-end hallway that had closed doors at either end, so it was all ours, and we would get rowdy and silly. Once we all started making rhythms on our lunch containers and formed an impromptu drum circle. Once we got hold of some balloons and took hilarious pics of several of us with them stuffed under our shirts like breasts. Occasionally teachers would come shout at us to keep it down, but mostly we were free. It was great. During 8th grade year, we were top dogs of the school and could basically pull off whatever shit we wanted if we were smart about it. One time, my friend stepped in mud that went up to her knees, waddled back into school after lunch, and went to town trying to wash off an enormous amount of mud in the locker room showers that nobody ever used. The showers were so old that the pipes didn't drain very well, so mud was everywhere. A mud swimming pool. By this point, my friend had to take her pants off and we were already late to class, so she just sat in the mud hysterically laughing to the point of tears. The PE teacher walked in, shook her head, and walked out. Another time a few classmates found some pairs of high heels in the dumpster and brought them to class. My teacher, instead of telling them to put the shoes away and listen, stopped class so we could go into the hallway and had the two boys compete in a walk-off. I miss those shenanigans. One of my teachers surprised me for my birthday, with my friends. He organized everything and they got me very well. It started when I was playing a game on my computer and one of my friends was standing behind me for a whole minute before I noticed him. I remember one day an exchange student came to visit us, which is amazing. One day a classmate came up to him and said, "I don't understand you, but you're cool," and handed him the sweets he had just bought in the cafeteria. Nobody did anything until everyone remembered that this classmate who gave the candy had a birthday. I don't know if foreigners have such a tradition of giving classmates birthday candy, but it was very nice. By the way, then this student moved to another city for unknown reasons. So this kid who was like half my size threatened to beat my ass. He was like 4'8", 100 pounds, and was a twig, because he was dating my cheater, yes, in middle school, ex-girlfriend, and I told people about it. It was a great memory and I laugh at that part still to this day. I laugh even harder because I laughed in his face and he ran off, later to text me and tell me that after an after-school thing I was involved in, don't remember, him and multiple adult men were going to beat me in the school parking lot with pipes. I continued to laugh and never saw him again, or the group of dudes going to beat my ass. Playing Smash on my 7th grade teacher's GameCube with a bunch of boys in my class who I knew. I always played Kirby and trolled the living hell out of them, even won sometimes. My arch-nemesis, in a way who I would always feel happy if I beat, would play Fox, and he was really good, so any small victory felt awesome, smiley face. And that reminded me a story that happened to me in 5th grade. I found a huge stick and I was showing it off to some other kids and one of them asked me to give it to him for a second. I gave it to him and he hit a tree and snapped my cool stick. So I grabbed a piece, ran after him, but he was much faster. So I threw the stick and hit him in the back of the head. I was suspended. Do you have any stories? If so, please comment below. Also, please like and subscribe for more daily content.